Good morning. I am the Reverend Denise Gouch. My pronouns are she, her, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to worship with the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. Our projectionist this morning is Colin Garrett. As Unitarian Universalists, our spiritual paths vary, but in this congregation, we have made a covenant together. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and work for justice. We are a welcoming congregation, and we deepen our relationships as we serve our congregation's mission to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world, guided by reason and compassion. I'd like to extend a special welcome this morning to visitors who are worshiping with us. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope you may find it here. If you have questions about our congregation, please do be in touch with me. You can find my email address in the staff directory under Contact Us on our website, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you are with us for the live broadcast of this service on Zoom, you may wish to experiment with the view settings at the upper right corner of your screen. And won't you please say hello in the chat? We love knowing that you're here. No matter what platform you're using to join us for worship, you can find helpful information like ways to give, faith development resources for all ages, and more in the worship portal on our website, firstuunash.org. We are so glad you're joining us for worship.
Good morning. My name is Jay Tiefenbrunn. My pronouns are she, her, and I am delighted to serve as your Director of Music Ministries. Our gathering song this morning is based on the Coleman Banks translations of the Sufi poet Rumi, with music by Lynn Unger, with the ostinato by Harold Brown. Won't you join me, accompanied by Tom Surface on guitar and voices from your choirs, in the singing?
Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times,
though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come yet again, come yet again, come yet again, come.
Good morning. My name is Sally Winkle, and I am one of the co-chairs of the worship committee. This morning's call to worship was written by Starhawk and is entitled Community Means Strength. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. The words for the chalice lighting were written by Lori Gorgas-Leben. We light our chalice flame for those who have lived their lives in closets of shame, for those who furtively visited bars where nobody knew your name, for the Stonewall riot in the fierce trans women who fought. For the plague, which still takes far too many, too young, too soon. So many gone. So many never lived to see out gay kids singing on TV, out gay people serving in the military, marriage equality, families formed by intention. We light our chalice flame for all of these and for all of our siblings of the rainbow surviving, living life out in the open with pride.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Diane Dowgiert. My pronouns are she, her. It is my pleasure to be serving as developmental lead minister here at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville, where we have made a commitment to opening our doors to people of all sexual orientations and gender identities. In this month of Pride, may we renew that commitment. Unitarian Universalism draws on many sources of truth and wisdom. One of those sources is the findings of science. And we have a slideshow for our story today. We can go ahead and get that started, Colin. Today's story comes from science. It is the story of a simple organism that can exist both as an independent cell and as part of a larger body of cells. If you've ever taken a walk through the forest, you know how the breeze sounds as it moves through the leaves, how the air feels cooler in the shade of the trees, and how you have to crane your neck to see the tops of those tall trees. If on your walk through the forest, you happen to look down, you would see tree roots burrowing into the ground, smaller plants growing near the trees, and maybe some fallen leaves scattered on the ground. If you happened to notice a fallen log covered in moss, if you looked more closely, you might notice a spot that looked wet and slimy. If you touched it, it would feel a little bit like raw egg whites. If you looked even closer at the slime, so close that you needed a microscope, this is what you would see. You would see tiny microscopic individual cells that make up the slime. If you came back to the same spot on the same log a few days later, you might notice that the log was no longer slimy. This would be because the slime had moved on through the forest. When food is in short supply, the single cells congregate and start moving as a single body. If you continued your walk through the trees and looked closely at the forest floor, you might see places that looked like this, or this, or even this, because the congregated slime mold can change the shape and function of its parts. It can form stalks with bulb-like structures that release spores, which are carried on the wind to other places in the forest, falling to the ground as single cells, where they will live on their own until they join with others again to go in search of food. In August of 2000, a Japanese scientist named Toshiyuki Nakagaki announced that he had trained slime mold, a brainless organism, to find the shortest route through a maze. The study of how slime molds organize single cells into a congregated body has influenced thinking about everything from city planning to computer networking and artificial intelligence. So the next time you're walking through the forest, enjoying the breeze and marveling at the trees, remember to look down. And remember, there are other intelligent beings moving through the forest with you. And here ends our story.
Thank you, Diane. I'm going to be thinking about slime molds for a while, I think. All of you may know that we share every Sunday's collection with an organization whose work outside our walls aligns with our values. Our Share the Plate partner for the month of June is our congregation's Trans Affirming Collective, whose mission is to encourage our Unitarian Universalist community to celebrate people of all gender identities through education, advocacy, and collaborative solidarity. You can learn more in the worship portal at firstuunash.org, where you can also find the link to our online donation form. As always, your gifts, like your presence among us, are received with gratitude. Thank you, Holling. Let us together continue this contemplative space Holling has opened up for us by joining our hearts together in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life that moves in and among us and all that is. We are grateful to gather together today, and we are grateful to be asked to think about the wondrous variety of things, beings, intelligences in the world around us. We are glad to know that there are so many different ways of being, of living, of learning and growing. Perhaps in certain moments we can survive, we human beings as individuals, but I think like the slime molds, we need to be reminded that sometimes we are better together. So Spirit of Life, encourage us always to remember that together we can do amazing things. We can go, we can move to places we could not otherwise move into, make discoveries we cannot make on our own. Please help us to remember that together we can move into amazing possibilities. Who knows what new lands, what new vistas, what new ways of arranging ourselves, cooperating, growing together, creating, we can encounter. May we always be open to seeing how life is always greater, more diverse, more wonderful, and more full of possibility than we know now. And help us to have the courage together to move from where we are to someplace new. Blessed be, and amen.
Today's reading comes from the Christian scriptures and are a part of Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but many. If the foot would say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? As it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them, as God chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I have no need of you," nor again the head of the feet, "I have no need of you." On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with greater honor, and less respectable members are treated with greater respect, whereas our more respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all members suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it.
The title for today's sermon is Emergence, Rethinking Community. It's based on the study of slime molds and other self-organizing systems, such as bee colonies and ant colonies, and how they may provide useful models for the time we are in, a time of emergence and thinking about coming back into physical contact with each other as a spiritual community. Know that your reopening task force is diligently working to keep up with the rapidly changing landscape of the pandemic, and we hope to have an updated plan to you by sometime next week. But in the meantime, we're still emerging. I first learned about slime molds in a Unitarian Universalist worship service. It served as a delightful illustration of religious community. Much like Paul's letter to the Corinthians used the human body to describe the body of Christ, or what I would call the church body or communal body. It illustrates how the community we make together is made up of individual parts that become something greater than themselves when joined with others. Together, we are one body made of many parts. No one part is better or less valuable than another. All are needed because together we can do what no one of us could do alone. While the human body is a pretty good metaphor for the community we make together, how the various parts are all interdependent, how the church community is a living, breathing, thinking, feeling, and doing organism. The metaphor that slime mold provides may fit the realities of today better. It captures the inherent tension in Unitarian Universalism between our first and seventh principles, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. It's the both and nature of being an individual and being part of a larger whole. The Reverend Fred Muir delivered the Berry Street essay in 2012 at the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly. He titled his essay, "From iChurch to Beloved Community." iChurch, as in iPhone or iPad, devices that are intentionally made to be tailored to individual uses and preferences. On smart devices these days, our phones and our tablets, we get to set them to be exactly the way we like them. They have our personal contact lists in them and our family photos. You can even choose the voice you want your device to use when it talks to you. Reverend Muir uses iChurch as a metaphor for the direction he sees our Unitarian Universalist churches headed. He says, and I quote, "We are being held back and stymied. Really, we're being held captive by a persistent, pervasive, disturbing, and disruptive commitment to individualism that misguides our ability to engage the changing times." And that's the end of the quote. This is not to say that individuality is disturbing and disruptive. Quite the opposite. For me, it comes down to this, especially as we enter Pride Month, where we lift up and affirm the diversity of sexual orientations and gender identities that are a part of our collective humanity. It is important to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person and the diversity of ways there are of being human. We honor and cherish individuality, which is not the same as individualism. Individuality says, "This is who I am. I can be no other." Individualism says, "My needs, my preferences, and desires are all that I'm concerned with." Reverend Muir maintains that what will sustain and grow us is not the language of individualism, not the I church, but of covenant. He says we cannot do both covenant and individualism. Individuality, yes, but not individualism. The study of slime molds and other self-organizing systems like colonies of ants and bees may provide a different way of thinking about how we create religious community for times such as these. What would change if we thought of our communal body not like a literal human body, but more like a self-organizing system, like a colony of bees or ants, or even an aggregated body of slime mold? Think about it. What these beings all have in common is that they each can exist as an individual and as an integral part of a larger whole upon which they are dependent for their survival, a larger whole that is dependent on each individual in order to thrive. And doesn't that sound a little bit like church? Not the I church, but what Fred Muir calls the we church, where every individual is in it not just for themselves, but for the good of the larger body. When the larger body thrives, each individual benefits. The individual and the larger whole are interdependent and interconnected. Grace Lee Boggs, the American feminist, activist, philosopher, and author, put it best when she said, "Building community is to the collective as spiritual practice is to the individual." The study of self-organizing systems has informed the creation of computer networks and the development of artificial intelligence, has changed how new highway systems and subway systems are planned, and how city planners approach their work. Not only that, it has informed and inspired different ways of organizing for social change and social justice work. You may remember the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement started in Zuccotti Park on Wall Street in New York on September 17th, 2011. And by October 9th of the same year, had spread to 951 cities across 82 countries and in over 600 communities here in the United States. There was no centralized authority and no 5-year strategic plan, just an idea for how groups of people could band together to resist injustice. The Occupy movement spread and coalesced much in the same way that individual slime molds find each other and begin to aggregate into a larger body. Individual slime mold cells release a certain chemical when they are under stress, most often when the food source in their immediate vicinity has been used up. The individual slime mold cells follow the chemical trails to find each other and aggregate into one, a body that can move with greater ease and cover greater distances than any individual slime mold could on its own. The aggregated body then propagates a new generation of slime molds, and the process repeats itself. African-American author and activist Adrienne Maree Brown draws on the wisdom of self-organizing systems in her book, Emergence Strategy, Shaping Change, Changing Worlds. It's one of my go-to books when I need to find hope for the future. Brown does more than say things aren't working and here's why. She says things aren't working and here's how we can do things differently. Here's how we can be different. One principle for Brown's model of change is interdependence and decentralization, like in the example of the Occupy movement. Another principle is that the process of change is non-linear and iterative. We can't draw a straight line from where we are to where we want to be. It will take experimenting, gathering feedback, and experimenting again. Another principle of emergent strategy is the making of time and space to feel and heal our grief. So these principles speak to this current time we're in, of interdependence and decentralization, of non-linear, I can't say that word today, non-linear thinking, of experimentation, of trying again, and probably most importantly, making the time and the space to feel and heal our grief. My friends, we are in a time of change that is unprecedented in human history. You know this. How many times have you used that word this year? Unprecedented. As we emerge from the collective experience of coping with and surviving a global pandemic, there is no roadmap for what comes next. We have to make it up as we go along. Not only that, we have all been changed in some fundamental ways. Mike Yasa, a neuroscientist at the University of California, Irvine, was recently quoted in The Atlantic as saying, "We're all walking around with some mild cognitive impairment." Let me say that again, quoting Mike Yasa. We're all walking around with some mild cognitive impairment. The article went on to say, living through a pandemic, even for those who are doing so in relative comfort, is exposing people to microdoses of unpredictable stress all the time. And it's my understanding, as a layperson studying neuroscience, it's my understanding that the flood of brain chemicals released by chronic stress actually work to prune the brain's neural networks. The good news is that the human brain is resilient and will regrow, but it will take time. In the meantime, we are all likely operating on less brain capacity than we had going into the pandemic. Not only that, during this time of altered patterns of living, many people have discovered things that they hadn't known about themselves before and are making decisions about how they want to live differently as they emerge into the post-pandemic world. Which, by the way, it is not at all clear that we are indeed post-pandemic. The vast majority of the world remains unvaccinated. For many people, this pandemic has resulted in an existential or spiritual crisis that has them questioning their previous belief system, even questioning their faith. It's at times like this that people need a Unitarian Universalist community. For many people, this pandemic has reinforced their need for community, their need to be hugged and touched and held, their need to cry together, to laugh together, to sing together, to break bread together, to be a beloved community together. In this time of emergence, of thinking about how to come back together as a community will require a different kind of intelligence than brain intelligence. This is where Paul's metaphor of the human body being like the church body is useful. This time of emergence will take whole body intelligence. It will take gut intelligence and heart intelligence. It will also take hive mind intelligence and slime mold intelligence, responding to our own need and the need of others, the intelligence of the we church, the communal body that values each and every individual while nurturing the larger whole. Unitarian Universalism is a living tradition, evolving and changing, ever evolving and changing to meet human need. It has done so in the past, and it will do so again. My friends, we've got this. We can do this. We can emerge into a new reality, changed and changing. May it be so, and may we make it so through our living.
I can't think of a better song to end our service with today than one of our favorites in our hymnal, Come Sing a Song With Me. This song developed a deeper meaning for the songwriter, Carolyn McDade, when she visited a women's prison, and the women sang it there within their context. The song of hope, of dreams, of holding each other through challenge and holding each other as we sing together in our emergence. We're blessed with being led by our friend Karina Daza, and I hope that you will join in the singing.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. hope is hard to find, and I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
The words for the chalice extinguishing were written by Elizabeth Sell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I leave you today with words written by Anya Somler-Michael. When faced with a challenge such as this, we can turn toward one another, or we can turn against. We can ignore the cries of our neighbors, or we can let them cry into the arms of our witness. We can respond with indifference to systemic injustice, or we can commit to its undoing. Good souls, tales will be told of how we responded when this particular hell was visited upon our earth. Let us know, and let it be said by generations to come, that when the pain of our separation was revealed, we moved closer to the promised land of our beloved community. This service has ended. May our service to the world continue renewed. Go in peace, go in love.